go ahead and call the Finance Committee meeting of October 1, 2025 to order. Take the roll, please.
Sure. Alderman Pecorelli?
Here.
Alderwoman Day?
Here.
Alderman Craig is excused. Dennis Cheney?
Here.
John Howard?
Here.
Mayor Kresovic?
Here.
And Fascia is excused as well.
All right, Riley, to the pledge of allegiance, please.
Allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on, item 2 is the citizens' comment period. Do you have anybody wishing to address the committee? I see Mr.
I'll state my name and address for the record as is practice in the city. My name is Paul Rotzenberg. I live at 67 West River Point Drive here in Franklin. And just some people may not know, I also served as the city finance director and retired in 2021. Have some comments for you. This group was presented a really big problem when you got a budget that, an operating budget that was $1 million unbalanced. And it's unfortunate those who are closest to the numbers didn't move forward with a balanced budget, but now you're tasked with making recommendations to the council that will provide for a balanced budget. So I have some suggestions for you, in my opinion. None of them are really palatable. But we'll start. You got to follow the money that's in the budget. So the first one that I have for you is in your discussion on wages, you mentioned that the police were getting a 4% wage increase, I believe, fire a 3% wage increase, and the non-reps a 2% wage increase. Since your revenues were only increased by 2.25% for tax levy, I would suggest that you lay off 3 police officers, bring in about $375,000 in revenue, and I'm using $125,000 per officer as a cost, and that would help pay for that the expense increase that exceeded your revenue increase. Secondly, I would recommend that you lay off 2 firefighters because they got a 3% increase. That would get you about $200,000. And then I would lay off 1 Department of Public Works worker and reduce the snowplow routes by 1. Obviously, that would lengthen the amount of snowplow time, not particularly desirable, but it works. And then last but not least, the inspection department had a wage increase of well over $100,000, but was mentioned during the meeting that the wage increase was only 2%. So those two numbers don't work, and I would reduce the wages in the inspection department by $100,000. Probably that would result in 1 inspector being laid off. That would get you $775,000 in expense reduction. Doesn't get you your $1 million yet. Then another change, you had a significant discussion in your earlier meetings about the health plan, and I would direct staff to change the health plan benefits such that you would get a $200,000 reduction in costs. And the one item that you discussed was to have employee spouses that are eligible for coverage under another employer's plan to be required to get that. And I think that will get you a significant part of your expenses. That would get you an expense reduction of $975,000, and I'm sure that you can find the other $25,000 in your operations. But then I'm not done with you yet, because the TIDs, you have 2 TIDs that are relying on developer guarantees, and your biggest problem is that your tax rate has been falling faster than the development has been coming. And you've been relying on developer guarantees, shortfall payments, to help make that up. At some point in time, you may not get that revenue. One of the possible solutions we have for you is to follow the example of the school district gave. Go out and borrow a bunch of money. You've got $10 million. I might try to take it up to $15 million and do those projects. Then amortize that new loan over the remaining life of 5. That would goose your tax rate, which would then provide additional resources to all the TIDs and make them better. It's not going to solve all your problems, but it would move you in the right direction. I know you have tough decisions to make. I hope that you end your meeting tonight with enough changes to the recommended budget to get you to a balanced budget. You probably have better ideas. I don't know numbers anymore, but I wish you well. Dollars with cuts to the operating budget.
That's the challenge in front of us. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Anything further? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and close the citizens' comment period and we'll move on to item 3, which is really a continuation of our dialogue and discussion regarding the budget for 20. Do we have, and correct me, do we have a couple that we need that are still outstanding to talk about or look at, or did we wrap that up on?
The only one that we didn't do were the TIDs.
What?
The TIDs.
Did Do we want to take a few minutes on those right away? Those are located.
Yep.
Yes. 279.
How could they?
First budget sheet. So I just want to highlight, starting on 288, which would be TID 5. Before I say anything, I'll kind of echo what Paul had said. These have been discussions that have been had amongst myself, Kelly, and the mayor multiple times over the last couple of years, and even when Paul was helping us 2 years ago, trying to determine how we can increase the revenue within the TIDs. And the suggestion, and my suggestion, to echo what Paul said, would be take out as much debt as we can. It boosts the tax rate. However, it does put the city taxpayers on the hook for a larger debt levy in future years, and it increases the overall tax increase on tax bills. And so I think the challenge that we've had is trying to manage the tax increase on the residents to a stabilized level where there's not much headache. And I don't know if you want to touch on that. I know that it's been communicated that keeping a 3% tax increase on the residents or less going
Is
forward.
preferred.
Yeah.
Is what?
Is preferred. And how do we?
Yes,
how
I
do we
can touch on
manage
a
that?
little bit. You have me here as in roll call?
Yep.
Okay, so one of the things that, in talking about it, is how do we continue to provide the services that the citizens deserve and that they expect for what they pay, and still be a very moderate to modest increase. And that 3 number maximum, because for a number of years we were flat, but we were also kicking the can down the road on a number of things, that now that those chickens have come home to roost. So how do we get to that flat rate but yet still provide the services? What we heard from Mr. Rotzenberg isn't anything new. That's an unfortunate reality. Whether it's lay off or unfill the positions, freeze the positions, but I wouldn't cut the positions because you want to keep them for when things do rebound. It's not easy, and that's why I'm really glad there's 3 other electeds assigned to this finance committee, because this is going to be a tough one to handle with really no clear direction other than staffing is like Mr. Rotzberg came out swinging. Staffing is your number one expense of our budget's about 80%. And, we're right there. So that's not an easy thing to fulfill, but I think these are some hard decisions, and I think that's what we need to look at as far as freezing positions with police and fire perhaps for next year. I'm not sure about DPW because they're short as it is. I don't want to put any more strain on them because we keep building roads and things, and we've got an issue with it. I'll yield for now, but that's going to be an active discussion that we've got to, as a committee, try to figure out before it goes to council.
Question here and then here. Go ahead. No.
No, go ahead.
What is the time constraint on moving this budget to council? Does it have to be like now?
The recommended changes tonight go to the council meeting on the 7th, but the final adopted budget is November 11th.
Okay, so there's no time to maybe return it back to the departments and say, hey, this is what's going to happen unless we make some cuts.
Well, it's probably
Yeah.
unlikely they're going to come up with that much money anyway.
Yeah, and publication date is in between there, right? You're basically at the end of next week, I think. At least have to have the proposed.
Proposed in the paper, but final changes can be
Yeah.
presented on the night of the adopted budget.
It can go that long.
Alderman Day.
So, just throwing this out there, and I'm not advocating that we go down this route at all, but knowing that almost 80% of the budget is personnel, and if you take that off the table, as in we're not going to cut staff, and we make up the difference with the 20% that's left? I don't think so. And I don't know that, well, I don't disagree with the notion of what Daniel and Paul have brought up about trying to borrow to increase the revenue. I don't like putting that extra burden back on the taxpayer for if things don't materialize the way that we think that they will. So I'm not, as I said, I'm not advocating that we lay people off, but I don't know how we get there without kicking the can in a different direction that might not necessarily, it gets us over the hurdle this year, but it's not necessarily fixing the problem and might be compounding it if it doesn't.
Are you talking about
materialize.
borrowing money is going to
Yeah.
compound the problem? Well, I feel that you're going to get something for your money. I mean, you're getting new infrastructure, you're getting new equipment. I think if we freeze hiring, I think that is the way that we're kicking things down the can even further, because we're going to come up with the same exact issue next year. It was $750,000 this last year, $1 million this year. We already know that net new construction is not going to be even remotely close to what we can project in maybe 28, 29 with the development coming forward. But we're going to have the same exact shortfall next year. So freezing hiring this year, I feel like you're going to have to do that for a good 3+ years before you even see any sort of outcome.
So if I heard you correctly, to rephrase what I thought you said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you don't anticipate development to increase at the rate that would be necessary to cover the costs.
Not in the next year or two. We know that development is coming, but nothing is going to be substantially built to be considered net new construction by 1/1/26 or 1/1/27. We're looking at maybe 1/1/28 and 1/1/29.
Could you explain that, please, about that net new construction, meaning as of 1/1/2026? If it's not there, we can't use it for the year.
It's not that we. How do I phrase this?
If it's not built, it doesn't count to the base, even though a commitment
Right.
might be.
On 1/1/26.
Correct.
That's the problem we have, Mira, is,
Not substantially complete
right.
by.
It's a year in arrears.
Yeah.
Yep.
You plan today, but you won't see that till 16, 18, 24 months.
I just
Depending
wanted
on
to
the
put it in very
project.
simple terms for me.
Like I said, had we not got that adjustment this year, we'd be in an even bigger hole. So, I understand what you're saying, Mayor, but I don't necessarily, because I think freezing is not giving us any needle to move.
Walk me through the borrowing again. So we borrow money to try to jumpstart project. But is that even enough? Like, how does that money come back to fill this gap?
You levy it on an annual basis, and as Paul said, instead of taking a 20-year note, we're gonna shorten it to 12 years. Is that not what you're saying?
No, if you borrow money, it goes into the capital, doesn't rest for operating it at all, ever. And no one would recommend that you borrow money and put it into the operating funds.
And I wasn't suggesting that,
But
no.
if the money we're talking about borrowing would be to deal with capital projects.
But we would
But
levy
because
that money.
But because you borrow it, then you have to tax for it.
Correct.
Be on your debt service. And that would raise your tax rate of the kids, but it doesn't general fund at all. I did have one other comment that I didn't make that I would offer to the group. Several years ago, the city filed its levy limit worksheet with the Department of Revenue. We did not claim all of our debt service levy as available levy. I don't know if you're still in that situation or not, but if you are, several years ago, we had another $500,000 raise your levy because you could claim it as debt service levy. That would be in addition to the 2.2+% that you got. That's half of your potential shortfall. But that's a real tax increase, $500,000 on your levy.
And just to echo that, what I can say is, yes, last year we had to increase our debt service levy, not by the $500,000, but it was by $250,000 to help us out. So we have another $250,000 that we could do, or more, but again, it's the tax increase on the rest.
That's kind of how I would like to see us proceed. That would be my recommendations for start to include that in our solutions to what we want to come up with.
Did that answer your question, or sounded like, looked like you had a big follow-up?
No.
John, I see a question over here.
Yeah, so there was some newer stuff that you had talked about, I think at the beginning of the last one. So are we still $1 million short to begin with, or is there things that have come in that have changed the $1 million starting point?
So there was the $130,000 that has come in from the ambulance Medicaid revenue that they project in 2026.
Yep.
But to date, other than that, no, not that I know of.
Okay, so we're
There's
at
the grant funding that we got for the,
the exercise
um,
equipment.
correct, but that's capital, that's not operating.
Correct. So right now our starting point is 870,
Roughly.
and then
You say there was something small on one of the state,
You're right, that was the additional, the transportation.
came in.
And we do
Put
put
that
part of that in the general fund, and that was another $36,000.
We're at 834 roughly.
so that whole 36 go to again, operating,
Yep.
part of it.
What was the 36 for?
The additional transportation aid that
State transportation.
got those estimates.
I don't know who saw Alderman Craig's email, but he had recommended making adjustments to the tourism commission budget. Apparently, there's a budget amount that's consistently over, so reducing that, and then
Can't.
Yep, that's the kicker.
he had actually I could bring it up and we prefer so that way.
Yeah, if you don't mind, would you?
Because it's pertinent and. It says, hello Ruffalo. I'm out of town for work and will not be available for the final Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday, 1 October 2025. However, I would like to propose a change to the budget. Fund 17, Tourism Commission. This is the only fund where there was no reduction in budget request versus recommended budget. The revenue is $418,000 off of motel room tax. State law dictates that at least 70% has to be redirected to tourism, marketing, and development. However, up to 30% can be redirected. I am asking for 15% to be redirected to Civic Celebration Fund, $62,700. In discussions offline with John Bergner, who is copied on this. The Civic Celebration brings in entertainment for areas such as Green Bay, be it music or fireworks technicians, and they stay in hotels in Franklin for the Civic Celebration, and by doing so also fulfill the need to bring more heads to beds in terms of replenishing the room tax revenue. As far as tourism expenditures to cut to make the transfer work, I would look at 17-0651-5299 Sundry contracts. If you look at their projected activity for 2025, it comes in at $268,065. Their request for 2026 is $336,097. The difference in cost is $68,032. It is also worth noting that the 2025 spend is in line with historical activity for this line item for this fund. I thank you for taking the time to consider this change for the budget. Regards, Jason Craig.
From what I'm gathering, this is less about the operating side and it's the tourism side, which is handled by the Tourism Commission. So we have John here, but I think it would help offset the Civic Celebration expenses, but I think there's some overall underlying issues with Civic Celebrations that need to be addressed.
100%.
But the Tourism Commission does have the authority to determine if they feel that Civic Celebration, if the event produces the required,
Heads to beds.
whatever the required expenses are, that they could shift some of that funding over to Civic Celebrations to help support some of those expenses.
What is the composition contract? Talking $250,000 and increasing, if I heard you correct, Kelly, 26?
He said for the contracts for the Sundry.
Sundry contractor.
Sundry contracts, it is for 2025, it comes in at $268,065, and the request for 2026 is $336,097, a difference of $68,032.
Talking about the Tourism Commission budget?
Yeah.
So there's a contract that we have in place with Engage Franklin where they receive 75% of the total room tax dollars.
Yeah, and he says he took it into account in here. So what he's working with, according to this email, is the remaining 30%.
Yeah, that's Fund 17?
Yes.
183.
Where is it?
Page 183.
Thank you. I wanted to. Tab 7, 183.
And if I'm not mistaken, there were something that kind
Yeah.
I would really like to find out though how many people actually stay in our hotels over Civic Celebrations versus like, what is the additional, is it something that you can actually warrant transferring $65,000 for?
I had previously suggested when they come up to approach the hotels and ask them to just ask, what brings you into town?
would it not be something, when the arrangements are being made with the committee to just do like a follow-up question to like entertainment that we're paying if they're staying in the community, and we can try to anecdotally track that until we determine how to track it?
That entertainment.
Okay.
The only one that was further out was,
The one group that, they all dance, at the celebration, but.
yeah, there was one group, but even they stayed with relatives.
So that's an automatic 70%.
Do we have that ability to freeze that?
Freeze.
Not
We-
freeze. No.
No, the
Well,
tourism
I'm saying, do we have the
commission
ability to freeze an increase opposed to, can we just, I guess what I'm looking at overall, I mean, everybody's on the board, is at least a freeze, a continuation of the last year's budget, and then look to do the cuts. I mean, they're asking for an increase.
We're talking about two totally different.
Yeah. The
Well,
Craig's request was specific.
To the tourism fund, yeah. So it's like a 30% of what's remaining in the fund. He's asking if we could throw that to the civic celebration expense that the city provides.
okay, transfer it over?
Yes.
Then that, we wouldn't have to transfer from the general fund, essentially.
It would
Right.
relieve the general fund of $30,000.
Just chipping away.
You just have to think about long-term. Can the tourism commission
Right.
fund support that?
Well, I think long-term, we had a conversation, what was that, like around May, late May, you and I, and then we also had a conversation at council about it. I think long-term, there are adjustments that need to be made to how it's ran. And I think that just kind of encompasses all the programs. That I think it's probably time to just reevaluate, process and procedure and what we're allocating, what it's for, and that sort of thing.
Probably also getting more talked about.
Consolidated contracts
Yeah,
with vendors
consolidating
and that sort of thing.
contracts and also maybe consolidating how we go about going after donations and everything
Yep.
across everything instead of treating each thing as its own.
Mm-hmm.
This is all the things that Franklin has going on and might need, and doing it that way, I think you're going to get more through that.
Yeah.
Right now, you got to get the right person contacted the right way.
Right.
And that's just, you're not, and you're relying on all those different areas to know how to do that and have all those relationships.
Well, the other thing is, my understanding is there were donations that we were expecting that we never got.
Yep.
And, the donation does not keep pace with the expense either.
No.
So, stuff like that.
You can't
Right.
bank on the donation.
No.
To be honest,
No.
this is
For,
just
for, to
because
run
we
the
don't
event too.
Right.
have any
So,
sales in
Technically, you
your
got to be
budget.
ahead
yes.
on that. You'd really want to be in a spot where you're getting donations, which are really the dollars are going to run it next year, and you're operating this year off of last year. Correct.
I think,
They got it.
Correct.
well, and I think that's, controlling the expenses and impressing upon those programs and the people that run them that you have to live within your means, and it applies to these programs as well. I think that that's necessary, and it's something that we should start forcing more accountability on. And I would say that, that covers all of them, really. I mean, one of them, it seems like, is completely morphed from what it began at, and I don't see any documentation on that morphing. And the travel program, it has increased. What was it last year? Increased from 4 or 5 to like 8 or 9 now.
What?
Because they had a surplus budget and now they want to continue the
They had a surplus from COVID.
Yeah.
They requested to carry over the funds, which is not something we would normally do. Or at least out of, it's
Yeah.
not something we would initiate. We carried it over, and as a result, and maybe I'm hearing this wrong, but the information that I'm hearing, the understanding from the program is that they should automatically get that surplus every year.
But it doesn't exist.
Correct. And then, it's the narrative of like, we're cheating. We're cheating the program. We're not cheating the program. It changed. And
You
the
changed
city
it.
wasn't part of
Yeah.
that.
And even there too, operationally, you're talking about multiple buses, or bus loads or whatever. I mean, you just gotta max those out. You can't get a third bus with 20 people on it. That makes sense.
He told me today there's a third full bus going to
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
There is.
Well, and I,
Where, sorry?
Went to the Play Oklahoma.
Oh, the Play Oklahoma. I thought it was like
Not
the
the
state.
state,
I was like,
no.
whoa,
No,
what?
to Oklahoma
what
Avenue.
are we doing?
We're going to
Yeah.
Oklahoma Avenue, go to Leon's.
Well, but I mean, to that end though, how many of the seniors are new to it? I know that they're supposed to be rotating to provide exposure for all of them. How many are repeated? And, I hate to even say this. I hate to even go here with this stuff because I don't want to do that. But,
No, not at all.
Are they taking turns?
The signups are on a
Yeah.
first come, first served basis.
okay.
Is it just first come, first serve, or?
Yeah.
Well, I think, again, I want to go back to the basics of all of this and impress upon the fact that we are looking at a program that has a budget, has consistently had the same budget, and out of thin air, it's become, you're taking money away from us. We had this, we need to operate with this. We don't. We really need to maintain what has been approved and operate within the budget. If you could stretch it, awesome. Awesome if you could stretch it and have more events and less buses or something. I don't know, but, or contracting, finding contracts that are reduced.
Well, I think
not
that's a
gonna happen.
program that you gotta look for
Yeah.
donations.
Yeah.
be
I was
honest.
Yes,
just gonna say.
yes,
Because
that
let's
too.
be honest, or sponsorship, how you're gonna look at it, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I think you could do that, and you could tie it to we need X amount per. If you had X, we need roughly X amount per event, right? Then you
Mhm.
could start having those conversations. But again, I think that all gets back to having a more standard way we do all of that, because
Mhm.
it's really up to each of these to do this on their own.
Right now,
and
yeah.
that's, you're never going to get that kind of understanding how to do that. And if you put yourself in the shoes of companies, I'm going to get 7 requests for 7 different things.
Right.
And it's like, well, what's going on, right? And am I getting the right person? Did I go to 7 different people at a certain company or whatever, right? Where I think we got to flip that around, so that, because if we can be more successful on those, then we can do those things, and the city isn't having to fund all that.
Right. Right.
And the grand scheme is not going to get us to $1 million.
No,
you know,
but
that one
every
item.
little
But-
bit helps, and I
Correct.
feel like we've been lazy with increasing revenue. I mean, I know we have been because we have fee schedules that are significantly outdated.
Did we?
I said, could we hire? a
Oh,
second
right.
judge?
Because that's the only one that's
Increase
doing a lot.
those-
No,
Fees, right?
actually, that's not true, because planning had increased by 40%, inspection services has increased their revenue. So I mean, there are
They increased their
departments
revenue, but we
doing
haven't seen it.
Right.
They've increased their fees, the revenue's just not there.
Right.
Development,
But they have through E-Plan too, increased it.
20 grand a year.
Better than
It's just
what it
hard
was.
to, right.
So,
It's
point of clarification, if I may, Alderman Pecorelli?
Yeah.
Are you suggesting then that somebody within City Hall kind of take over the donations?
Yeah, or at
All
least
these
have
separate
it be
Like a template.
oversaw by that, and then you either have somebody that's what they're doing. So either you have through a committee that's they're in charge of doing the donation, it's oversaw by the city or whatever. But you can still do it through a volunteer
Through an app.
or whatever. Yeah, but centralize that. Don't ask
One
each of the-
message,
Yeah.
yeah, going on
correct.
behalf of all committees
Correct.
and central
Well,
contact.
and as they're soliciting either citizens or companies or whatever, you go in with this laundry list of types of things that they could get involved in.
Correct.
They could choose.
Correct, and then that also goes to, as new companies are coming in, we have a list of this little stuff that we have going on.
Yeah.
And opportunities for you to
Correct.
do.
Opportunities.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, well, and we do have companies that do that and look for things that speak to them. You
Right.
know, Saputo is an example of a company that was looking for an area to donate to that spoke to them. And you know, we benefited with Kayla's playground flooring.
So when those requests are, who handles that? That come through you, clerk's office,
Currently,
electeds?
What do you mean? What?
donation
Yeah.
donation requests, it's like Alderman Pecorelli has said, there is no formal system set up.
Nobody's knocking.
Yeah.
But I mean, if, as John said, if they
Who would do
approach
it?
us, who's fielding that, you know?
I think
Is
it's like a one-off. It's typically a person that they're approaching because they're typically like the commission member or chair or something like that.
Okay.
I know that with Saputo, we approached it as a team, but we also did that in step with the bids that we were looking for and all of that. So, you know, that might have been more along the lines of
When I would solicit for St. Martin's Fair, I would be going out there knocking on doors, and then they would write the check to the city of Franklin, lower left, St. Martin's Fair, and that's how we knew that's where it went back then. That's separate, but is it being done aggressively enough? No, but again, it's small potatoes of what we're going to do.
Right.
I mean, but we need to have somebody earmarked here that could be that person also, like the go-to. But we're short there. But again, let's say it's $50,000 a year. I mean, we have a big nut to crack.
I have an insurance question when I was going back over the numbers. Do we know, roughly speaking, how many people are on the high deductible plan versus the PPO plan?
yeah, we do. The nurse spreadsheet.
You really need to price that out, how much that would save. Because
Well,
there's no attempt to really look at it, and it's been
Well,
suggested for
I'm
the last 3
thinking,
years.
I'm thinking a different route. I mean, there's definitely that, and we talked about that last time. But the two things I'm gonna say are gonna be very unpopular. But one thing that companies have done to save money with insurance is there is no PPO. Everyone's a high deductible.
It's another alternative.
There's that option. Then you don't necessarily need to mess around with the spouse or the family piece to it, although you could, but you don't necessarily have to. I mean, when I'm just looking at the numbers here, and this is like the insured side of it, but the margins are probably very similar from our side of it as paying the premium on our side, the splits. So there's that could save some money, depending on what the split is between the two. I mean, if the majority of the people are already on high deductible, then it's not as big. But if the majority of people are still hanging on to PPO plans, then there might be something there. And the other piece that I have, it's a little bit to what Mira was talking about before. But, you know, we're looking at operating budgets, and there's some very real things that need to occur. And I'm still out there saying, you know, I'm just going to make this up. I know this is not the number, but let's say we need to cut 5% from operating to get close to balancing this out. And you go back to the department heads, you have 2 weeks, 3 weeks to figure out where to cut 5%, or we're cutting it for you. So my unpopular opinion, because Daniel's going to cringe at this, and so is Paul, is if you get, I'm just going to use easy numbers for math. So say a department's operating budget is $10,000. Instead of breaking it up into 20 different line items, you reduce that $10,000 by 5%, and the department head then reallocates it. Then everyone's taking the same cut. This is something that other communities have done. I've talked to people in Tosa and West Dallas, and they had massive bigger than ours issues. And in TOSA, it was everyone take a 12% cut, every department out of the gate. So it's another way, it's fair, it levels the playing field, everybody has to give a little, I'm sure, and it lets them decide what they can live without.
100% agree with you, and
It
I'll
is.
wait till you're done, and I have a comment on that.
But I get that puts us in the bind, but if it's like a number thing that we have to put forward, could we, again, this is gonna make everybody cringe that has to do the book work, but could you just make it one operational line to get us through the budget period, and then let the chips fall where they may when they reallocate their funding? It's like you cut it by this percent, or we can choose what line items for you. So we'll just
Right.
take all your conferences away from you, and then you get no line item for conference, and
Right.
like things like that. Because if we're saying you don't need to go to training, but every department says I need to do the training, then they keep that, but maybe they don't need to pay, maybe they don't need all of these office supplies, or maybe they really don't need 10,000 stamps this year, or something. I mean, there's got to be some give and take somewhere.
It's almost like, in theory, the opposite of divvying out a bonus to your group and providing it, here's your bag of money, and this is how I'm going to determine how to shell it out across everybody. Except that this is your bag of money, and now you determine what you're going to do to operate.
Well,
And I'm sure it's not as easy as what I just said, but in my brain, I'm thinking, how I would balance my own budget. It would just be like, okay, well, I've only got this amount of money, so I guess I have to decide what I'm not doing this month because I don't
Right.
have it.
Is there a quick way? We're looking at 7.5. Or what did I see? What's the
I thought it was like
reduce the-
3.06 or 3.6 or something percent overall
30.
for everybody to reduce by. She's saying, like,
I would have to.
what does the million equate to?
okay,
Yeah, but you can't apply that to everything because you got the personnel in there.
Right.
well,
You have some things you can't
John,
touch,
then-
right? There's only certain some departments you can cut. I mean, insurance, there's some that we just can't reduce by 5%.
well, I am 100% strong in support of Courtney's point, because that was going to be something that was going to be brought up and has been brought up in years past, to make it literally that simple. I mean, I've been forced to make that exact decision in prior careers and lives, and my both PD agencies said, this is where you're at. You have to have a 10% cut. 10% period. You know your job, you know what you need, you make those cuts. And yes, the training thing, that was a big deal. Freezing a position for half a year, a whole year. Yes, there is some kicking of the can, but you know what? That's a reality. And if we are looking for a short-term fix to get us to see where we're at with that new construction, everything else, I think that is the smartest thing to do, is to let the department heads know, here's where we're at. This is what we're looking for, 10% across the board, if that's what would be the magic number, whatever it is, and then we would move forward with that and then make it that simple. But I wouldn't give them a time frame of 3 weeks. They know their budget inside and out. They know exactly, and I don't want to prolong our budget more than you could literally give them 10 working days and they'll come up with 10%. So,
John, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, so just two things. One is, I've lived through that a lot. The only things you gotta be careful on is when you do those things, you gotta be careful that you don't have one area that punts work to a different area, because I've seen that happen before.
well, we'd review it.
And yeah, that becomes a big problem, right? So somebody gets their number and they just make somebody else's life way more difficult to try to meet their numbers when they get to the operational side, right?
Yep, and we would
They're not always aware of what got cut, right? So something gets cut and you get into the year and all of a sudden somebody else is way over budget and you're trying to figure out why. Well, it's because somebody else cut something. So we got to be a little careful on that, right?
understand, but I think it's
Right, I'm not disagreeing at all. I also think there's some macro stuff when you get in insurance and everything, I think you do need to look at. And so from a standpoint of having levers that gives you a lever, and we can decide on how far. You could give them a number, and then we step down and ask them to prioritize it a little bit. So if we can step down a little bit, it gives you, okay, I can give you these couple things back because we were able to get to this number, so to speak. So I think you do need to give, not only do they got to know what to cut, but if they have like 3 or 4 items, which is the priority, right?
Let them do it, right?
Yep, and then that way, then once we get where any of the other items, we know where we're gonna sit. Because technically speaking, because right now we don't have the number on if we do like the PPO, right? So we moved everybody. We don't know what that number is right now.
We have 33 employees that are non-retirees that are on PPO plan.
Don't they get a bigger they pay
They
They pay more.
they pay more, right?
They actually are offsetting the expense for the high deductible
Right.
employees.
So it's really no gain there, right? I think the spouse thing is a lot easier.
So it's really how many are those?
Yeah.
I
That's,
don't think it's
there's
that
some
many
money
either,
there.
because
I
our
don't
insurance
think-
isn't that great. So I think unless, I don't know, it could have changed over the last few years, but
I know when.
No, but I
we
think
did
we've
that,
noticed that a
sure.
lot of our high claimants
That was a
that we
big
pay for
seller.
are spouses and not.
Yeah, that
employees.
is actually
So-
accurate. Yeah.
So that would be a reason to get them off
The
of the.
cancer claims
Could get
that we've
100 grand.
had,
Yeah.
I think are predominantly coming.
The question I have about across the board is how is that limited or impacted by negotiated contract with police and fire?
Won't be able to do those, most likely.
Can't
May
touch the
not.
contract.
Yeah.
Or until the renewal period,
Until the-
right? We have
correct.
fire coming up in.
We gotta be careful with that.
that's a good question because I know that, I don't know, I doubt that it was voluntary, but I know that it was fire for certain in one of those communities that had to drop by 12%. So I'm not sure how they got around that or if they volunteered
They
to do it.
combined. They just did a mutual aid
Right.
combination.
Yeah, but that's
of
not
those
for
two.
this particular year's budget. It's,
Taking a place for next year. They combined Tulsa and West Dallas. It's a big combination thing. That's how they saved a bunch of money. I think we really focus on, here's the percentage, your budget, you make the
Go from
cut,
there.
you got 10 working days.
Which could, but I'm still stuck on I don't think it's gonna move the $1 million needle or $870,000 needle.
Well, if 80%
no,
of the
not, you can't
budget
take it out of police and
is,
fire.
so
Well,
what's
my-
the total budget again?
The question I specifically had there is if you can't change the contract wages,
No.
but are you allowed, or, I mean, is it feasible that if you delay or unfilled positions that are open, that those could be put toward that goal?
Yeah, because we do have current positions, I think 3 or 4 that are,
Yeah, if I'm the chief, I'm gonna just not fill a
just
position.
freeze it.
Right.
Or a position and a half, like one for a year, one for half a year, and there's my 10%. Thank you
Right.
very much.
Yeah, that's easy.
Or, that's how
You're not
simple
gonna-
this can
you
be.
can't
Correct.
Get rid of people.
No, you're not gonna get everybody
No.
packing because we got openings.
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
But I'm
So
saying,
if you gotta adjust some shifts,
still stay within the contract and all the.
you want
Yeah,
to
that's
touch
the
it.
other part,
As long as it
we
doesn't
have
come
to
back and
stay
bite you
within
on
the
overtime.
contract. I don't
Well,
know how
but
much
that's
we
their
can
budget. Their
actually.
budget's gotta be. To John's point, what John just said is, because I had that exact same scenario. It's not like, okay, I'll cut up 1.5 positions, but then I'm gonna backfill with overtime. No. Your budget's here. Your overtime budget's here. Barring a horrible mass incident, this is your overtime budget. Not because some person is sick and you're gonna keep. No. You're gonna have to maybe run short sometimes, or you're gonna have to, bring that power shift in that covers second and third. But at 3 a.m, that officer goes home because from 3 to 7 we got 1/10 of 1% of the calls. So that's the kind of mentality that's got to be working
Yeah.
here.
Right.
But I think you let them do that, and I think that because they can manipulate all sorts of things. But to John's point, no, we're not just going to backfill overtime. That's insane.
Well, and what if we reduce the overtime budgets?
Problem. Overtime
Well,
is,
Will you freeze it barring an event? So it's a
You
carryover
can
from
still
last year.
right, but what I'm saying is, for example, the fire department, their overtime budget we gave them $215,000, but the anticipated projection for 2025 is only $165,000. So it's, how do we reduce the budgeted amount and just tell them you can't go over this?
This is what we did. So you went to the 165, you kept the 165, and then they came in and gave quarterly updates of where they're at with their number, and barring, we got 3 people that got hurt at a house fire. So now we're down 3. We had to use overtime. Then they come back to council for that. That way we can deliver the balanced budget, barring any major event.
So should we consider reducing the police and fire overtime budget?
To last year's
2026?
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last year's numbers and quarterly updates. You have to. That's the
Yeah,
exact thing to
if
do.
we have more control over those overtime hours, that's huge.
Well, and the other thing that I think we've noticed operationally over the years is that the police maybe has a little more flexibility in their staffing and time of day versus the fire and EMTs because they have these minimum ship or minimum crew numbers or whatever. So if they're, at a fire station with 1.5 people, which doesn't exist, but I think you made the comment the other day, you send out a truck with 2 people or whatever, they can't, start operations until somebody. So it goes back, I think, to your same comment. They're the ones managing this. They know the ins and outs.
They know.
How to staff and arrange 24 hours a
They
day.
know.
And maybe certain hours of the day, they will not be there. Will not be able to.
3 to 7. Which
Exactly.
ignore.
And
Yeah.
then different times it may be just the opposite.
I think as a committee, bring that to council. I think that makes the most sense, but not too long. 10 working days. Come back with it.
Yep. There's not that many line items.
No.
for any department.
When you could have a scenario with the overtime, if they know there's 3 positions that are unfilled, they may make the
Make
decision,
a run
hey,
for it on
we're not
overtime.
we're not going to fill that at all, but can we take part of that, in the net and put it toward overtime because we realize we may need a little bit of that if we're down, that basic staff.
I
Would still get to the net bottom line number, but it may be just a difference between the line items.
Yes.
But that requires them to come forward and talk to that, correct?
Yeah, they would come
Yeah.
by quarterly
Yep.
to a council meeting and give an update. And if there's got to be a budget amendment, they would work with Danielle, and that would be come to council. But that way, we've got a real lock on where this money and expenditures are. But it's their ideas, and as long as we're not giving them less than a year before, let's say we want to do this for next year, whatever their overtime budget was because they got pay increases, just add 3% to it or 4%, and that way you're flat, you're even. Which is going to be still a heck of a lot less. So if you add that 4% for police, 3% for fire, and you continued it forward, but they are making those choices, that's the smartest thing to do. And that's, many communities do it, and those two did merge.
And I do like the quarterly kind of check-in.
Absolutely.
I'll be honest, on the private sector, like anytime you got to move dollars around, you gotta there's a process for that. That's not and there's a regular check-in on those and everything. A lot of companies are monthly, but
I know in years past, that overtime has gotten out of control.
Especially, and I was just gonna say in the police department, I think that's $440,000 in 2023, $300,000 in 2024. They're projecting $312 for 2025. How do we mitigate that on the
Didn't
police
I
side?
hear that there were 10 officers walking St. Fair's grounds?
10.
Or
That was it.
St. Martin's.
Yeah,
St.
so
Martin's
then
Fair.
it goes back to my privatizing
At
that,
once?
because it's got to be cheaper than our
Oh,
people.
well,
Actually cheaper. $70 an hour when it cops on the
Yeah.
board. $70 an hour.
And so this brings up a question for me, right? Are we allowing them to manage that, or are we telling them how to manage it?
We're
And
allowing
then
them to manage it.
are we running into issues with allowing them to manage things like this, where there's 10 people working overtime or holiday pay or what have you?
Overtime.
Right. So, I mean,
But then
It's-
again, Kelly, to your
they
point,
might have to be told.
if
how
that
to-
budget is restricted, now if I'm the chief, I'm like, you know what? I think I could probably do with 8 instead of 10, and maybe another auxiliary, opposed to this. Now they're thinking about how to solve their problems opposed to us
Solving it
imposing,
for 'em.
which I don't want to do that. I mean, that's what they're highly paid professionals. They can figure this out.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Go ahead.
But then what
Yeah.
happens when they consistently go over? Is that where you're gonna try and mitigate
Well,
that
that-
by having the quarterly
Yeah.
reports?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then if where I would go next is if from a quarterly standpoint, the trend coming out of that is not good and we don't have answers, then you gotta go to a more frequent touch point.
Sure.
So,
And that's where you break it down to Kelly's point.
maybe you do-
Let's say you have these quarterly meetings, say, okay, you got St. Martin's Fair coming up, where are you at with your budget?
Right.
You know, okay, what do we have for last year? No arrests, no citations, blah, 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 blah. You have 10 working this event, that's a lot. You think, where can you bring this back a little bit? You implement now a private approved security firm that other communities are using. How are they doing it? And then we look at that because, yeah, that's the big monster, but I think that's the direction to go. Let them know if Danielle says the magic number is 10% is your cut, 11% is your cut, 8%, whatever.
So are you considering personnel and non-personnel expenses with the
Yes.
10%?
It's the whole thing.
It's
'Cause
all
it's up to them, right?
They're-
If they decide they don't need a person for some reason, like
For
to
6
fill a-
months.
right? Yeah, to fill a position or whatever they're gonna hold it. That's up to them.
Hold
You
it
gotta
for-
give them. You gotta give them all the
Tools.
Yeah, correct.
Here
If
you
you
go.
limit it to
All the
just
options,
non-labor.
That I was just gonna say that's my biggest concern is we have all these people, but they don't have the tools to do their job. You only cut it on the non-personnel.
No, it's
side, so-
in my opinion, to the group, it's everything. However you want to do it. Do you want to hold off on a new squad car?
You can't.
A lot of agencies, we were hurting for vehicles. Well, you got this vehicle, you got to make it last 3 years, and then we're auctioning them off with 200,000 miles. So I mean, there's we're looking at all. I mean, nothing's off the table.
And then there's
Nothing.
And then there's a second piece to this. So once you start going down that path, the second piece is you start having people look for where there's opportunities to save money going forward. Like how do you get more efficient? And that's the second part that you got to do this because that's how you get
Sure.
yourself out of this situation.
And they're real hungry the first 6 months of the year. First 6 months of the year, you'll see some real, up until the 4th of July, you'll see all sorts of things so they can have that nest right here, and then they see where they go from there.
Yep.
But that's the way to go. But just Danielle's got to bring the magic number, which she feels it is, along with, do we want to also look at that 250 to do that? So, I mean, the bar,
I think you take I guess my view would be is take the 250.
What are you
we,
talking
we,
about?
we do the cut off the 834 or whatever number we're at right now.
What line is?
Are you talking about the 250 on the debt service levy that Paul mentioned?
That's what you were talking
Yes.
about. Yeah.
It's not necessarily 250, and that was one piece that I wanted to discuss. So it's your annual debt service payments that you make. So on just the city's debt for 2026, we could levy up to $1.3 million. And in doing that, that brings our average tax increase to 6.5%. So by taking out and levying the full $1.3 million in 6, you're looking at an average tax increase of 4% for the resident.
Of the city.
And that gives the
General
city $410,000 to add to the general fund. So for $410,000, the citizens are seeing a 6.5%.
yeah, I don't like that.
Well, nobody does, but
No.
ultimately, but it's
Well, okay, well, I mean,
But if you were
$110,000.
half that, so if you went half that,
Yep.
that's a 3% or three something, right? That'd be 2.
I like what you're thinking, John.
Well, and then if you turn this around, $33 million operating budget, you get $1 million, 3%.
Correct.
Round up.
So I
So
guess
if everybody goes back with their story problems,
Right.
and come up with 3%.
Yep.
I mean, we're not asking for 23,
no.
Right.
or, but I think your comment is right on, is that this problem will not self-correct. I mean, you know that the tax base is still a year or two away at minimum. So we have to be, as you said, looking and thinking, how do we get more efficient? Whether it's the Wauwatosa West Allis idea or, whatever.
Or
Not
more
going to fill these
revenue.
positions or, different timing of these
yes.
personnel.
But I think, we have to think, okay, so we're October 1st,
Mhm.
okay? and we're looking under the gun, where can we at least get through next year with a balanced budget, with a moderate tax increase. And I think we're gonna deliver that with this plan.
I have another option that Paul didn't bring up. Not that he would necessarily know. So for the last 2 years, we've considered taking $300,000 of levy and putting it towards the street improvement plan. What if we reduce that by $300,000 and put it back in the general fund, and then $300,000 less that the streets department gets to do the street improvement program?
But then, does that cut Drexel?
No,
that's
Drexel
a
is a
different- that's
completely
a-
different
yeah.
capital project. It just leaves them with $2.2 million to repair the streets in 2026.
Let me ask you this. So where are we at with our anticipated tipping fees money coming in?
I said 2.6 million,
Oh, that's unreal.
0.65.
Unbelievable. Who'd ever thought?
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, part of that, Danielle, is that's the Christmas present of all Christmas
Yes,
presents.
right.
And
Yeah,
just use those dollars on the capital side for long-term value for the city.
I'm talking about levy, not landfill siting.
No, I was just bringing up landfills
Oh.
to ask the question. That
Because
was
then
it.
there's some ways you can maneuver things too. We've talked about, we have $39 million in capital projects. You put that $300,000 back into the general fund levy, take it off of the streets, you can shift. The landfill siting revenue comes into all 4 capital accounts.
Right.
So you can shift some of, if you want to keep $2.5 million for the street improvement program, you can shift some of the landfill siting revenue from other capital funds to that, and with the anticipation of borrowing more for these other capital projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just some suggestions. I mean, there's either you kind of reduce the amount of capital projects you're going to do, or kick some of those down the road, but you're getting $300,000 in your operating budget, or 200, or any number.
I mean, I think that number, that levy increase should be a 3 something, and at maximum. And I think to your numbers, where I'm
The other
at.
thing with this kind of massaging the capital side is that everybody here knows that there'll be a revisit of that whole borrowing and expenditure probably somewhere mid-2026 anyway, right?
Correct.
You could always come back and say, what are those priorities now and which funds?
Yeah, oops, the carpet has to extend another year, but
Right?
you're operating with a little bit more than you thought.
Yeah. Or
Shifting that we can do too.
you like shifting.
But I think the determination of your budget, what you want to see on the taxpayers, really plays into how we shift and what we do.
Right.
Because if you are adamant on a 3% increase or less,
Well,
really
between
limit.
3 and 3.9 is where I'd like to be. But 3 to 3.9, however, if we can keep it at 3 and we give a 10% cut across, tell the department heads to cut 10%, I think we're good. But a realistic number is between 3 and 3.9 and no more. Like low end would be 3, high end would be 3.9. Because what we're going to have here with citizens, and I'm going to soapbox for 17 seconds, is when they drive around our city and they're like, wow, all this building, all build, all why is my tax, and that's the big deal. That's the reality. So how do we do that? That's why I think it's the prudent thing to do, to put it back on the heads, department heads, with your number, with a little bit of massaging of some funds back and forth.
And I will say that this is the time when they're doing this to think about, I know it sounds crazy, but to start thinking forward to 27.
Yeah.
Because on what you can start getting in front of, because some of the stuff takes a little while to do,
Right.
and otherwise we're gonna be back here and be in the same thing, and probably the hole's gonna be 1.2 or whatever, right?
But it depends. To your
It depends
point.
on the net, but yeah.
And that, yeah, so we can move some things around. That tipping money, Paul, if you remember when that first started, it was supposed to be, I thought it was 18 million over 20 years. and then all of a sudden it just took off. Because, I mean, nobody thought that we were getting, it is the best Christmas present ever. It's like, thank you, garbage people, and they want to expand more. Well, they do. They approach me. So they want to do another expansion. So, you know.
So the permitting process is so involved now. So make it restrictive. You got an ongoing operation that's compliant and has capacity. Woo-hoo, that's the best of all worlds.
Well, they want to expand, but that's another thing I'll be bringing to council back in spring,
But there again, I mean,
hopefully.
we moved away from all of those dollars affecting general operations, and I mean, we allow, what, a small amount now, up to 20%?
The max is 10% of landfill siting.
Yeah,
And we've been hovering around like 17 going to the general fund.
so, I mean, I think it just behooves us to all keep that in mind, that it's someday that
Be gone.
present will go on as well. So again, to the extent that we use that for long-term capital, big value added many, many years, I think it makes sense versus paying salaries.
Correct. Well, where I was going to go with it is you got to start taking some of those funds and putting it towards efficiency to lower operating. Because when that rolls off, to your point, when that rolls off, you got to be at a different operating level. Otherwise, you're going to have a huge budget challenge. So you got to figure out where you need to start putting those funds to get in front of the operating side of things, right?
Well, I think, to kind of expound upon what people are talking about as well, I think it's very necessary that we start taking steps to implement all these various ways of creating efficiencies, reducing expenses, and also increasing revenue. That has to be something that we do, we don't just talk about.
You need to do all. Oh, go ahead.
It's got to be aggressive.
To that point, would you rather wait to the next meeting for a revenue idea? It's minimal.
No, I think
I mean, it's peanuts compared to what I'm talking about. But if I understood correctly, you were, Alderwoman Day, you were once Parks?
I was on Parks Commission, yeah.
Okay. And there was a discussion, if I understood correctly, about not renting things across the city?
Not?
No.
Or not consolidated, I guess.
We were running out the ball.
Because we had to take care of it. I was on Parks
There's
too.
a lot of, I would say there's a lot of inefficiencies in how the rental of our space is occurring.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes back to the department that they have to figure out, either increase the revenue.
But no department head wants to claim it, apparently.
Oh,
and-
we'll help them claim it. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah.
Well, we
Thank you.
have,
Sure, yeah.
that one, we've got many cooks in the kitchen on that one, and nobody wants to cook.
They need to
so
be
that's-
raised, but not for City of Franklin residents. Non-residential fees need to be raised because why is everybody
Right.
coming to Franklin? Because we're the cheapest
Yeah,
date in town
absolutely.
where we shouldn't be. I
But-
mean, we're cheaper than Milwaukee County.
The problem is that we can't keep up with personnel aside, because obviously we don't have enough people.
Right.
We don't have the money to repair the things that we have because we're not bringing in enough, so.
To cover the
So
expenses.
our facilities are quickly
But
Deteriorating, yeah.
But what I wanted to bring up was, I'm assuming that's some kind of software that would allow for payment to come in, correct?
Yeah, and I,
Could that software also be used to consolidate the donations? So you have one piece of software that's kind of doing both. Like you could have a rental side and then you have a donation side.
So the rental side, most of what you're going to get efficiency on is the ability to get rid of the steps in it, to be able to rent something, right?
Right.
To reserve it and to make the payment on it. So that way
you remove the middle person.
you remove that, right? You want to make that all efficient, and we get the money through that, right? And so we get payment. The donation side,
It's
I don't
just
think
different.
we don't have a. I think
It's
the
a
donation
channel
side.
that comes into treasury is all I was thinking.
Right, but on the donation side, you got to have a touch point. We don't have a lot of companies that are going to be on autopilot that are sending us checks, right? So you got a touch point to the mayor's point, right? When he walked around, you're going to have a touch point. You have to have those touch points. So the efficiency isn't going to be in how we get paid per se. It's in the donation part. It's being consistent on how we go solicit those.
It's like
right?
one letter, one donation letter, one contact, one person
Right.
that is spearheading it,
That's a good
one
example.
overall
If
message.
we did mailings, just an example, we did mailings out of Civic, right? So they did mailings. Well, we could have done mailings that use that same exact dollar amount and actually hit all of the things we needed money for. All we did was ask for money on Civic.
Right.
Well, there's an expense where you could have spread that across all the donations that we needed as opposed to just for one.
Right,
And I
because you said you snail mailed them?
Yeah.
Did everyone else snail mail? I'm just thinking like postage, like
Correct.
just like
Yep.
think
Oh, yeah.
that through. Because
78 cents a piece.
Yep,
I mean,
78 cents a stamp.
I mean, it's little things, but all
Correct.
the
Well,
They
and
all add
that's
up.
why,
And
that's
to
why
that-
I'm pushing for a electronic only newsletter ASAP, and we will print them for those that request it, or, identify some senior homes around here that we can drop off a stack, if that's something that is really important to them. But the thousands that we spend on print and what we get in return, I just don't feel like I feel like there's much more people that have internet access now that will look on Facebook when we have a city Facebook page and read the newsletter versus picking it up and reading it in real life.
To the snail mail end, previously, the donations letter for that entity, almost all of the routine donors
Yeah.
were the only ones that got a print.
Yeah, they went bigger this year.
But even 80% of those got like print. There was probably 20% of the routine donors, sponsors, that wanted it electronically.
Yeah, they did print.
And I didn't see the electronic
And
one
I don't
online.
think they went out electronically because what it said was they didn't get much back outside of the normal. And when they did the print, they did see an increase in the number of donations. But to the point, I think we could do that in a different means across everybody and
Yes.
and take that cost and hit all the stuff we need.
Yes.
It's a one hit
Correct.
thing. It's cohesive. It's
And-
not inundating
And if you do it in a
Yes.
way where you people can opt into an electronic, so that the next time around we have a set of okay, these we can just electronically
yeah.
submit. Because to your point, there's a lot of them that might want that, right? But it starts to get you stepwise
Right.
out of this.
And the thing is, if you get into a pattern with that, they know that, oh, yeah, we're gonna get the city request in
And it's
the
gonna
first
come-
quarter.
Right.
Yep.
What do we
Right.
want to
Exactly.
support this year? We
Right.
did this last year, we like that, well, what? And I mean, so
how
now
much of
you,
a write-up do we want?
Correct.
It isn't.
Right. Oh,
So back to the question at hand. If we take the 130 out and the 36, start at the $1 million, I mean, we're talking roughly 800,000 that,
and then we start reducing the overtime for PDFD and putting
Or are we
putting a
giving them,
mechanism on.
or we're just giving them the 10% assignment.
I think that's fine, but either
And
way,
cap
we need
it.
to cut
We need
the
to cut the overtime.
PD,
But-
we need to cut overtime.
But to last
period.
year's amount, plus 4%.
What, do you mean last year's budgeted amount? Because they,
Last
that's
year's
what I'm saying, the
actuals.
overtime, well, the actuals was well over budget, so how do we?
You-
At least for the fire, no, so we can reduce that to the last year's
I would
actuals, but
I would go fire and police to last year's budgeted amount, add 4% for the police, 3% to the fire, and that's your budget amount, and we go from there.
you're not helping them.
Well, it forces them.
You're
To
right, it
make
forces them,
adjustments.
but the police department is
They
spending
already
well
operate
over
outside
their
of it. It won't matter
well,
telling
yeah.
them one number or another number.
If they're already overspending their overtime budget, how are we
They're
gonna give them
ignoring it.
that same budget that we gave them last year?
Well, I hope not, Mira.
It won't
I think if
solve.
you don't give them
Just create a bigger problem because
a reduced number, then they continue to overspend. If you don't give them a reduced number, we're not keeping the city in.
But what that does is it forces, as I've been in that position, it forces them then to look at where they're spending their overtime dollars. And if not, then you got to stand tall in that room over there and explain to us where you're going, what's going on, why you're this, and then what you don't want is a council to start microing and
Yes.
questioning why, but that's where you're gonna go with this.
So right now, they're at the same budget as last year. They were budgeted 290,000 in overtime. We budgeted for 290 this year, but they're projected to reach 312.
Well, what if you go, now you're the math person, so is she. So let's say you did 290 plus the 4% because that's the pay increase. So what does it equate to? Another 10 grand?
I'm
That
still
doesn't
not
seem
trying,
to-
I am not following what you're trying to
Well,
say.
what I'm saying is,
Increase it by
is
the-
because of the
amount.
contractual pay increase, that's where I'm coming with a 4%.
It's only
12,000
301.
bucks.
So it's 301 opposed to 312. Okay, then it's 301.
Yeah.
We mark it to.
There's some of the things that drive the overtime though, of officers
they
that
are
are
the side
injured
thing,
and things like that can't be there, and then they got a substitute.
Possibly, yes.
But
But-
they got explanation.
But you have an explanation. But then again, do you have to fully staff everything and not move a shift around? I mean, that's where you really have to, they really have to do that.
I thought that both the PD and the FD have
The expert.
minimum numbers of personnel that they need to have in operation. At any
They
given time.
determine what their
Oh, okay.
minimums are.
At
Point
the
of
end of the day,
clarification.
I mean, and we've had, excuse me, and I won't get right back to you, but at the end of the day, I mean, we'd have police chiefs here in the past too, you know, saying, hey, these are the standards, union, you know, recommendations. But at the end of the day, I mean, you give them X dollars, they've got X dollars, and that they're gonna do the best they can.
They'll
with it.
figure it out.
Yeah. They
They're
have
So-
I'm
to.
saying reduce it, let them figure it
Yeah.
out.
So my
Question or comment?
question about clarifying, please. If overtime is then changed to 301 from 310,
It's not, it's 290 is in the budget right now, so if we give them 301,
Oh.
we're increasing it.
okay.
I'm just saying they're projected to spend 312 in 2025,
And we just keep it at
which is over the budget.
290.
I would just keep them at the 290 because
Yeah,
the
but-
problem is otherwise you just made our hole bigger.
Okay,
And my recommendation is sit and make
Yep.
them figure it out.
yep.
The question
We
would be,
gave
what
them
do you
290
reduce
in
by?
2023 and they spent over $400,000, so there was either no oversight or managing of their overtime.
And I'm sorry, this is not gonna go over well, but if you're that far over budget, there should be some kind of
Consequence?
explanation.
Explanation,
Well, they gotta start
detailed
coming in.
explanation.
Yeah.
Well, that is the consequences, having to come before the council and explain.
And then that,
yeah.
honestly, shouldn't that affect the raises
No.
next year?
It
No?
can't. It can't on the.
Based on the union, right?
on the union
Well, that's what I
side.
was gonna say. Would that go
It's
into
a contractual
negotiation?
agreement the city is obligated to fulfill.
Yeah.
What you do in that situation is when they come in with something crazy, you say, look, you got that one position that's assigned to second shift, and you got an opening on third because you got two people, now you make it a power. 7 p.m. to 3 a.m., 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. You're going to somehow use one person to cover your high call volume time instead of using two. And that's your option. But let them figure out their problem with when they would do it. You know, and this is not, you know, we're really hamstringing ourselves to some of these things, and now we have to make some decisions.
So Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, looking at, obviously, there's been some internal discussions about letting go police and fire, but because we received that supplemental aid, we have to fill out those maintenance of effort forms where the police and fire can't, they have to perform essentially and certify that they were performing at the same level of staffing and everything that they did in prior year. And if they don't, then we reduce our supplemental aid by 15%.
That is
So what would be the benefit
Of laying
of,
them off.
of laying off police and fire if we're going to reduce our supplemental aid?
How much is our?
It's a one-time expense reduction, and you're going to have a revenue reduction following. But you'll have set a new level that you only have.
And how much is 15 of the aid? It's one thing if it's like half a million. I think if it's
130,000?
130,000.
How much?
130,000 we would lose next year. But we would have a lot more reduced expenses by doing
You would that.
But that would be with a full layoff.
correct.
Correct.
I don't think we're I don't know that anybody's suggesting.
No, but
that
that's
as
just, that,
reality.
something that
But
we
you
had
could-
not discussed already, so.
You could simply not fill a position.
Right.
You get the same result.
Yeah.
You know, it's just going unfilled. Let the chief
That may be
figure
a
that
way
out.
to deter, to allow us to not get penalized.
Yes.
Well, if you have an unfilled position, you get penalized for not having a person?
Because when we can't hire people.
Yeah, I don't believe that that takes into it.
Good.
Well, and
But
let's
I
be
have to
honest,
double
how
check.
long how long does an open position sit right now with
Nothing.
like
We have
like
4
if we
openings
post-
right now.
correct. And so we're sitting, so the problem is just because we have openings, if it takes you 12 months to fill it, you're always gonna have openings spanning fiscal year. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
So for them not to fill 1.5 positions to balance this thing, it's
Not too
doable.
different.
Yeah.
And they can move a person from second to power or third back to power, and you get the same results.
But I think we
They
can
give you
find
enough
other
wiggle room.
efficiencies too. I
Three.
mean,
Yeah.
you know, some of the things that we had talked about,
Three
just from
allocate.
practice standpoint, we could be
Give some of the things back.
eliminating as much paper waste as possible. I mean, I know that we've had a couple of council sessions where every single council member had received council packets that were well over 200
oh my God.
pages.
That's a short
I
one.
mean, one was like 1,000 twice.
It was
that we
ridiculous.
received
It was absolutely ridiculous. I have to get binders that are absolutely
And right, and this is
like
that's
$10
absolutely absurd. It's so
$10 in
wasteful.
paper.
It's wasteful. It's very it takes up space. And what are people doing with it? Are you keeping it for a particular reason? Are you finding a way of holding onto it because it's just
One
it's,
pile keeps growing, but yeah, most
Right.
of them get recycled.
right? But you know what I'm saying? Like we could have this in something that can be housed and accessed from anywhere as long as you log in online, and that would reduce expenses as well. I think that there are things that council, I think, you know, one of the things that I think we really do need to look at is how much time we spend at council. I mean, I know in past years, maybe, you know, long ago, I don't know how long ago, 8 p.m. was a late night. Now we're there. It's ridiculous. And I think we can start creating efficiencies there. Add consent agenda items. Nobody wants to spend all night there. At
Well,
least
I
don't
like
think
your
so.
consent agenda item, but as an alder for 6 years before mayor, I was there till midnight, more than I want to remember. So it happens.
Yes,
I'll tell you that
but-
too. I mean,
But here's
you're not going to shut them down.
here's the thing that I do want to emphasize. Then we need to start being efficient with our use of time. Schedule consultants and attorneys at the beginning of our sessions. And if we need to hold closed sessions, then we hold closed sessions. Have our consultants at the beginning, have the employees that are paid hourly at the beginning because they're getting overtime.
No problem with that at all. Okay, so how do you want to move this forward? Yeah.
Well, I think it's
So never mind.
Danielle?
well. We've discussed a lot, and a lot of things I'm going to have to do behind the scenes. Try and balance this. I think we've made some good headway. Just looking at, I'm not going to commit to anything right this moment, but the departments that we can cut, right? There's some of them we just operating that we can't.
There's-
Insurance. There's
they're too
some
small.
mayor, alderman. There's some that we can't. So the ones that we can, if we committed all of them to, I'm gonna feel comfortable saying a 5% reduction. I think we'd be more than fine.
That's it? Easy.
Yeah. And then
With
I
the
would just
increase
say
in the
make sure
Medicaid
they
revenue.
prioritize their list. Because the flip side of it is so everybody
Give some
cuts.
back.
Right, everybody cuts, and then as we're going, what's gonna think about how many things change as you're going into. So then then we know what might have to come back, and it also gives you an idea of when people prioritize and you get into the operating year, like how did that change? Because what's gonna happen over time is it's gonna start telling you, are people thinking about things the right way? Are they need to think about them differently because what they put at the top ended up not even happening? You know, like it starts to help people think about what is the things that when I'm prioritizing what I need to spend, am I thinking about it in the correct way?
And the police end of it, everything is to July 4th. All your training, everything is you make it to July 4th, then you exhale and you see what you got. Because every year and everything you're doing with special events, all that stuff is once you get past July 4th, now it's like, now what can I do? So I think by letting them, they know their budgets. But to your point, yeah, maybe midway they look and they find something else they can do and add back. Maybe, but that's still on them. They're running their own business.
And I think, like I said, me going back and doing the math and really determining what it looks like, and should help. Plus, I think the one thing that I mentioned in a previous meeting is this budget does reflect a 5% dental and 5% medical premium increase, or we've also determined that in the next probably 6 to 8 weeks should go down to almost a zero. So that does help some savings there. Or again, maybe first quarter, second quarter, we can look into increasing some budget line items based on what some of these numbers look like after the budget is adopted. Some of them we just don't get until that. Health is one of them.
Is everything set? I'm sorry, John.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what's that in dollars? Going from 5% to 0, roughly.
Well, that's
I won't.
revenue. That'd be a revenue, right? You're talking about employee contributions?
No, I'm talking about the city's contribution.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's just on insurance.
Yeah,
but
but-
You want to keep talking?
Yeah, you
1 minute and I can
Go
figure
ahead.
a
Talk
rough
amongst
number out.
We'll
yourselves.
talk amongst ourselves. So I guess if we move this forward, this is the plan for now, and the direction's given to Danielle, and we're pretty comfortable with that direction. That's great. But simultaneously, I think we've gone, because I was also on Parks Commission. That was the first, other than St. Martin's Fair, that's the first thing I said on, and as an alderman I said on it. But I really would like to see, if we have to take the ball, which we shouldn't, but if we have to do it, or give strict hard direction, I don't want to keep going back to parks because it's not getting anywhere. But we know what we want to address. We know what we want to increase. Mary Remington, Parks Commissioner, my former Cub Scout, den mother with my mother, she jacked me up about software for whatever. Well, then let's get it. Because we need to raise our non-residential fees. Not residential, our non-residential. Because I sign those checks that go back to people. I mean, I sign a stupid amount a week. And a number of them go back for park rental returns, whatever they call it. But, I mean, a lot of them do not live in the city of Franklin. I mean, we really need to, that's one of them, whatever, and I always say this to like Kelly and Danielle, whatever we need to get, be the guidance, be the leaders, wherever we're short. I mean, I love what Justin's doing over inspection. He's thinking out of the box.
Yeah.
I hate that term, but he's doing it. And he's got some other revenue sources, and he's doing it well. We encourage that. In our next department head meeting, I'll be calling out those that have taken that leadership role and are doing it without us sitting back or without someone saying, well, you know, I don't know what to do. Helpless turtles, no time for them. That's where you need to guide them because they've now proven that they don't have, I don't want to say the term, Courtney, the guts to get it done. How about that? I know I really love when she's, anyway, got a lot of feet on that. So, but when,
Feedback on that.
but what we should do is we really need to take that thing in it. But then we've already, because starting in January this year, when I came to all of you and included say, hey, we got some problems, we're right off the bat, and it kind of went like this over some department. You know, like, well, no, we need your help here.
Right.
So let's just implement. And I don't know what the legalities of that. So let's say we wanted to increase. Does that have to come to council? Are we limited? I know Milwaukee County, you were limited. Raising fees was like pulling teeth.
Most of them are ordinance that have to.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying a rental fee for the parks, pavilions, opposed to a parking citation.
Yeah.
Parking citations need to be $10 more. No question.
No, there's mandated increases that we can't touch or that we do already.
But parking we
there
can.
are some on
There's
our normal fee schedule that we.
There's a lot of money that we are leaving on the table. I mean,
Right.
we all know how much time we spend with some of these developers, and the amount of time we spend is nothing compared to the compensation that the city gets. And I consistently say it really rubs me wrong as a taxpayer because I'm paying for all of these developers' time and business and developments because we're not recouping those dollars. And I think we need to really focus on pass-throughs with that and absolutely increase. I mean, when you have an event that's got projected 10,000 people there, why are we charging $100?
And if we have the ability to make it a $500 charge, we need to do it.
Well, the planning department, I will say, I will give them credit. I mean, they significantly increased their fees, and we haven't had any complaints this year so far.
Right, because they did the due diligence though too to make sure that they were in line with other communities, and that's what we have asked others to do, and we're at the point where we're going to be forced to
Right,
do it.
because they're not doing it.
Correct. I mean, and this has been an ongoing conversation. I know one of the permits that we issue, we charge $5 and it costs us like
$8.
2, 3 something
It
more.
costs us $8 to do it, and then we charge $5.
This is a known
Checks.
issue and no one has brought it forward to change it. That complacement, the apathy for the concern, the issues here it's really,
But we've always done it that way, Kelly.
I struggle with all that.
Do you recommend then that maybe some of these be listed out for the next month's meeting, or will they just be done internally?
Repeat that, sorry.
Do you
You
want?
mean like some of these ideas, like
Yes.
develop them further?
Yes.
I think we should
Well, I'd like to
start
implement
talking
them
about it.
effective January 1.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we have time to say, here's your fee
Get it
schedule.
Yeah.
I want to take these major events that we rent here from $100 to $500. Parking citations, not ordinance violations, but parking citations, add $10. Bring it to council. And then, I mean, because and I don't really care what another municipality is doing. I know where we're at, what we've got to do, and we're leading. Of the 19 municipalities, people want to be us. We have everything going for us. We just have to shore up some things.
Well, and I think, some of the problems too is the perception and how it does not align with the truth either. And I think, there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of just frankly incorrect narratives out there. And I think part of it's just continuing to educate our community. But along those lines, I think it's important to stress that we are on the low end of taxing taxed communities within this county as well.
But
I mean,
what people feel is the actual bill that comes in.
Right.
And with that huge school referendum that just
Right.
went through.
right, and I totally understand that.
So,
I understand that. I think we all have the same. None of us are billionaires,
and people
so we
don't
all
look
have the
at
same issues.
this
Unless
Dennis
you
is.
guys are, I don't know. Maybe
Peachy is.
maybe some of us
I've
are
been to your
billionaires.
house.
Yeah, but I mean,
Got a
You know.
moat.
To piggyback
we're all
off of that, though,
experiencing the same pain points
Mhm.
financially, and we all, to some level or another, have to make the same kind of sacrifices and determine.
And I think when we
that
bring these
including
things,
with 2% raise that keeps up with cost of living too. So I guess just being as sensitive to that as possible.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue because we are
Yeah.
already outside of comps.
Yeah.
And where we were,
but I think we do have
targeted.
some ability to reevaluate departments, see where some cuts can be made or go unfilled through attrition. To your point though,
health.
Myra, sorry. I didn't hear that. To increase the levy to get us to the 3.9% that you said would add another $240,000 to the levy. I don't know if that's something that you're comfortable with. That would close the gap quite a bit.
So you don't think the 5% across?
I do.
I would
I'd rather go
there.
7%.
I would just go, I would see about 5, because 5 gets us without having to do the levy, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I would say 5, see where everybody comes back with.
And say you have to.
Because that'll get us without having to do all this other stuff, right?
So you're recommending that I essentially send out an email and in the next, give them a 2-week deadline and say whether it's
Maximum.
personnel or not, or operating,
10
you
days.
have to cut
Right.
5%.
10 days. Why don't we do this?
Or just put a date in there as the date.
As of this day.
Must,
Well, the
Yeah.
drop dead date is 10 days, 10 working days.
yes, and my
10 days.
point is spell it out to him. Count the days out and give him the date.
Give them the date.
Oh,
Send an
for
email
sure.
Tomorrow, I mean, I'm fine giving them to 1.
That would be the 15th, right?
That's not a lot of time.
That they could, Dennis,
They know their budget.
more than enough time. trust
There's
me.
not that many.
For
For
her.
her.
Not enough time for me to write.
Yeah.
But,
So
I
you
mean,
may, so do they need, can you go with less? Less time?
Yeah, let's go with less time, and you know that the people that will
Is that
push
where
it
you were
will push
going?
it.
Although for your purposes, you can just put in a negative 5% cost savings in and on the numbers.
correct,
No.
So-
Okay.
I'm sorry,
to
Dennis.
get us just through.
She can
Turn on my
cheat
hearing
us,
aid.
basically. She can cheat it for a minute to
Right.
get us where we need to
She
be.
can just put a credit line in each of these budgets for 5% and get the numbers to run. And then what we're talking about is reallocating when their detail comes back.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, let me ask you this. To John's point, John's thinking
Placeholder.
5. Now, what if we just said 6%? Another percentage that gives us a little bit of wiggle room, or make it 7%. I mean, when you're talking between 5 and 7, I'd like to just see it 7 and see where we go from there.
Well, and to your point, we can always, come back and say, hey, we're well within balance. Now we can kind
Yes.
of come back and see.
We can give you a little
Yeah.
more.
That's where the prioritization, I think, helps too.
So
Because
let's
it just
do-
gives us an idea of what are we talking about.
I'd say the 7%, and it's due October 10th.
I like that, because that'll,
They got plenty. They can figure this out in a minute.
Honestly, there's not that many line items. I've had to do this with way,
Right.
way more line items.
Well, I had
In
so
a few days.
Yeah, me too.
when I had the fleet at the county, and the sheriff said, "Here's the yellow pages. Find out." Remember those days? Here's the yellow pages. Farm out whatever you can farm out in your divisions. And I came up with oil changes. I had the fleet, and it was $29.99. They cut me a deal in Tulsa at the Jiffy Lube, and I came back because the county internally was charging $110. Okay.
oh boy.
And that was poo-pooed in like this. And I'm like, here's a huge savings for all these vehicles because that department, okay, was making money off doing oil changes for all the entities.
Yeah.
So because they were charging so much, they were padding their things.
Mhm.
So you want to talk about somebody that hates you,
Mhm.
the village a-hole.
Mhm.
But it was that simple of a concept. It's like, wow, these oil changes are $120. Are you kidding me?
No.
Go over to Antosa on North Avenue, and the guy's like, oh, I'll even give you a better deal. I'll cut you back $5. I'm like, bloop, in writing, submitted it. I thought it was going to be hoisted upon shoulders and carried around.
Celebrated. People
No.
would be cheering.
But
I was
that's,
stoned.
but that's what I was talking to, is that what you don't want to have is one department getting their value out of another department. Or
That's
getting
exactly
their,
what it
right?
was.
You want to make sure when this is all done, the city as a whole gets benefit, which means taxpayers are getting the benefit out of it, right? So you got to make sure when this stuff comes in, that's what you're seeing. You're not seeing somebody cut and then somebody else is going to take a hit.
Agreed. That's why I gave you that example.
Yeah, I get it.
What I was going to say too is I struggle to, and unless somebody can explain this to me in a different way, I
Dennis
struggle to tell a department head you have to cut your budget by 7% when, for example, he's not here anymore for economic development. He's a one-person show who I feel already runs extremely lean and still comes in under budget. And I'm just like, you have these larger departments that are that's the meat.
fat drivers.
Yeah. And then you have these small ones that just.
But that's okay. So the reason I keep bringing up the prioritization part, right? So what I've seen is everybody comes back with this is what I got. This is what I want. Like I'm gonna cut these, but this is if I'm gonna get stuff back. This is what it is, and that's visible to all of us because then we can go and say from a city standpoint, priorities. If we look at all everybody's number one, we could say, okay, this one and this one we're going to add back in again because if you look at it from a city standpoint, those two have the highest value, right? Because otherwise, you do run into the problem of the departments kind of
Sure.
like,
Balance.
yeah. And if someone's really efficient,
But they
And
already are in balance.
if they're already efficient and you got another department that's not, if you ask both to cut 10,
Yep.
Well, one's got an easy job and one's got a difficult job, and the problem is the one with the difficult job has been doing a good job of that the whole time.
John
right?
Riggets.
So,
Yep.
so that allows, so you give that to everybody, you tell them to prioritize, and it gives variability or options to what they get back. So if we know somebody was doing really, really good or whatever, and we can do that, we can give that back. And then that also reinforces the concept of you run a tight ship, and you're going to get more benefit out of that, right? Correct.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely departments that run very lean and tight, and then there aren't, and we can certainly try to look to balance that. The problem comes into, here's the fine line of trying to do somebody else's job for them and getting them to.
It'll take a little bit to work
Right.
through that, and you're gonna have some that are better than others.
So where does that leave us? We have, basically, we should have a recommendation to the council, or at least their consideration, right?
Yeah, there was just a couple things that I did want to comment on, some of the asks that I had noted from the other meetings. I know we listened to a lot, but there was a few that we didn't necessarily discuss. So we're over here asking department heads to reduce by a certain percentage. But then you had a couple departments, and the mayor, you had asked that, for example, the police, I believe, or no, the court, that, that Pro Phoenix interface
100%
That-
needed.
absolutely get added back in. So obviously some of these add back ins do shift. But I think the 6% we should be fine, or 7% we should be fine.
Let's go 7.
But I just want to make
10.
sure that we're all on the same page with some of those add back ins that they were
Right.
requesting.
Those
And
are,
so,
Yeah, that we're
but
making.
that's efficiencies, right? So
Yeah.
we're trying to pull back more and then add back in where we're actually picking up the efficiency, because that
And
gives
that's
you
the
longer
problem.
term.
It's like the
Right.
e-signature program, it's the open records management program. It's those things that will cost something to start up, but
Right.
should create significant efficiency.
Correct.
so we are on the same page about giving the court that $5,800 for that Pro
For this
Phoenix.
year.
Yes.
And then,
And in the same breath is the new,
they
now,
still have to reduce though, right?
Yep.
I mean, they can get that, but they still have to reduce their operations by 7%.
So there's there'll be an interesting part. The carpet, I'm sure, will still be one of the items, but will it be the first priority or?
Well, but that's
a low
capital,
bid?
that's not
Correct.
here. We
and
talked
it's,
about
and
it,
we're gonna,
so-
I want that rebid with some local vendors who will.
And we will, right, but there was a couple other ones, I know, most importantly, and I know we've talked about this kind of ad nauseum, but air travel, they requested that 10,000, are we keeping it still at whatever, I don't remember what it was.
Well, they spent $22,000 last year.
Correct.
That's what it should be then.
Yeah, that's what.
That's what I talked today at the senior lunch. They talked about it, I committed to it.
Not senior lunch, senior travel.
Well,
Yeah, he
Yeah,
did
but
it
he
there.
spoke of it.
Oh.
the
got
seniors
both of it.
wanted to be reassured
So
that that
you-
wouldn't be cut. And it said as long as it was whatever we did last year,
Which was 12,000.
But that's
Oh,
my
it's
concern.
22.
it was
That's what they
22.
spent, John, is because we kept allowing them to carry
I
forward.
know,
So-
you rolled it over, so
Right.
you spent $22,000 and 20
Do you want to give them
last year.
22 grand?
But there's nothing more to roll over.
No, there's nothing more to roll over,
After
but
they
it's still,
overspent.
if they're gonna keep the program the same, they spent 22,000 last year, that spent
And that is
22,000 this year.
wherein lies the issue. The program prior to 2023, my understanding was 4 or 5 times a year, and now came
They had
back
additional funding.
Yeah.
and asked for,
More vehicles.
they did 8 to 9, I believe, because they had additional funding
That
that
shouldn't
they
have been the
requested
norm.
to
That
spend.
should have been the anomaly, except
Exactly.
they had extra
But
funding.
now it is being treated as the norm.
Yeah.
And that's,
They're not gonna be able to live up to all of them.
Only
And,
get
you know, I
12
know
free kids a year.
Basil's had been a little bit controversial in the past, but he does an excellent job with that program. He really does, and the safety, everything of the seniors, and does a great job for many, they love it.
And I
Yeah.
do think
Yeah, but
that's
it,
one of the programs that we can look for from
Mhm.
don't
Sponsorship.
the sponsorship and
100%.
everything. So it probably won't solve our 2026 problem, but actually we can maybe get in front of that.
In the
Right.
city.
Or I.
And I don't think anybody is arguing the job that Basil has done. He absolutely is running this program probably single-handedly or with his wife.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a lot of work.
It is.
But the point is that he had a budget and then he doubled his program based off of what was a one-time increase, carry forward, and then the narrative is now that is the norm. And that's the problem.
And he has his own budget, and we're asking everybody to cut 7%, and we're doubling.
Yeah.
More than done, yeah.
Well, we're gonna,
Like,
to John's point, I agree with him, 22 was spent last year, 22 is in the budget this year.
And he still may have to cut a trip because
He might.
there's inflation. So,
So what if we put something in place for 2026 requiring him to get fundraising, and the city will fund a certain amount, but then they'll match his fundraising money instead?
I don't mind doing that ask after he's been given the 22.
yeah.
So maybe set that up for 27. To give, because I think part of
Big
this,
decision. We can choose to do it or move forward with it.
Oh,
or
no.
not.
well, but I think part of this is we can get the donation stuff to go more central. And that gets included in all of that. Then maybe we can get this tackled for 27.
Here's
Because
an
I get the 26, and the problem is there's not enough lead time for some of this stuff for 26.
Right.
Can I just point something out? We're coming into like a cyclic issue here. One impacts the other, and that is we're talking about adding more work to already overworked employees that
Well, I'm not saying that it should be on employees. What I'm saying is we got a bunch of groups that do this. Put a group or whatever how you want to look at it, and
like
that's what they
somebody
do.
in charge.
They do
Yeah.
donation commission. Well, I don't know what it is, but somebody that's what they do. Because otherwise you're and then all of them can leverage that,
Yeah.
and then we have one central way, and when they got to do mailings or anything, we have one set of that and everything.
No, I love the idea.
I don't want to
I'm
take an
thinking you're
employee.
talking like more of an employee
No.
position. I'm thinking
No,
we're struggling
No,
from
correct.
that end. So
No.
yeah, okay.
no. If you're going after donations, the first thing that should be donated
It's a
is the
volunteer
time
time, yes,
to do that,
exactly.
right? Yes. Yeah, correct.
Exactly.
I'm still
Otherwise, we're in the hole 100,000 or whatever,
Right,
right, for the
right.
person.
I'm
Yeah.
still stuck on, we're asking essential city staff to cut and get
Thank you.
lean, but we're giving the Happy Fun Time more money. And I'm not saying that it's not a valuable program, but it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever
They're not
That-
comparable.
that you're trying to get so lean here, but then these other things don't have the same responsibilities. I don't get that. I understand that they want to have 8 or 9 trips every year. And maybe that was already promised to them, but there's a budget and you shouldn't overpromise before you get your budget. Everybody has to come in. If anybody else had been asking for double the budget that they were given in here, they wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that he's loud and I get that he's popular, but the loudest voice in the room isn't always the right voice. I don't know how you can go back to staff with Danielle's email, and then when they're looking at this budget and they find out that
That a few $1,000s?
May I
No.
ask a
But
question?
that is the
It's not- it's
question.
not
Is that worth? Is the $7,000 worth that ask
You're
of
telling-
all of your
May I ask a
staff?
question, please? May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
This
And
senior
principal.
travel group, my understanding is they were getting how much? 12? For how long?
2000, 2001.
It was 10 and
it
then
raised
12.
to 15 this year.
So they hadn't received any type of raise.
It went from 10 to 12, and then at some point, and then this year the budget went from 12 to 15.
Because Civic was given a couple of years ago a 231% raise. So if you're talking about going from 12 to 22,
Well, I voted no on that, so I'm being consistent in my
Yes,
in my thing
be
on this. 'Cause
consistent in-
I have the same feeling about that, and
Right.
and St. Mark's. I have the same
No,
feeling
no,
about,
though.
about all of those. Like there's There are things that the city
Actually,
needs
I
to
don't think you
operate.
did vote no on that because that happened a couple of years ago when Bergner came in. That happened when I was still on that commission.
Well, she would have voted no. No, I think you were here.
Yeah, no, I remember when we upped them 30.
Yeah.
You were on council, but you didn't vote
We
no.
increased the
In
30.
here,
Oh,
but
It passed
when it comes
unanimously.
when it comes to the whole budget, then it becomes
Yeah, it's
We
a
don't have
different
one.
story when you're
Yeah.
taking it holistically
Yeah.
versus program by program.
it's the principle.
That
of
is exactly it. It's the principle and it's a holistic view, not a singular viewpoint.
And if you look at just the numbers, yeah, 12 to 22, you say, well, it's 100%, but really what you're talking about is it 7 trips or 8
Yeah.
trips or whatever. And if that's the level they have and there's increased number of seniors in the city of Franklin, and again, it's just transportation. They're funding all the inflation and costs for
it's
the,
a modest increase
Exactly.
considering.
There's 100, and today they said their membership is up to 171.
You know, I can't get past, I'm sorry. The internet is a curse. I can't get past a $62,000 baseball grooming machine.
What?
they don't have it.
Yeah, we don't
It
have-
wasn't, it's not in the budget.
It's not in the
Okay,
budget.
what?
She's talking about DPW on the
DPW.
whole.
Yeah,
so-
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Little
Yeah, I mean,
rototiller that's on the 3-wheeled baseball.
It's like your Christmas wish for Santa when you were a kid, you know, you aim
But
high. And
62,
But to
Okay,
the
so
point,
what I'm
just
hearing-
saying, it's the budget
it's
issue
the
because
principle of it, and then you start cutting, you start doing that, and you're going to increase, what did you say, 46% of that budget, but you're asking essential work to be reduced by 7%.
and I understand
Well,
that.
what I would say though is, we don't have a community center.
Right,
If we had a community center, we'd have a way bigger O&M problem.
Oh, yeah.
What is the
Oh.
community room, though? That is exactly what that room is consistently, day after day, used as. And nothing else. That is, if that's not our community center at this point, then we are wasting
Real estate.
real estate. And we should be bringing people up from the basement then or something and making
well, that's what we want to
a
do.
different
That's-
situation.
I'm just saying the point of this is that Mr. Ryan made commitments and promises to this group on a budget he didn't have. And now he's basically got us over a barrel saying, if you don't give me this money that I was never approved or guaranteed to have, I'm going to sick all of the seniors on you because you're getting rid of my program. That's not how budgeting works. I mean, he should know better than that.
Oh,
He's
he does.
sat- So he's playing games.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can give him $22,000, but next year it's gonna be like, well, I want to take,
Nope.
prices go up. And
No, no,
so
no, no.
Now,
22. I'm telling you right now, Courtney, I have the cuts. 22 is where we're going to leave it. But we have to do 22. Right, John K. Howard? Right.
when we're both here next year, God willing, I'll bring this conversation up. I betcha.
It's going to be 22.
Well, the other option is you can eliminate it completely. We talked about that as well.
Yeah, no.
Well,
I
see,
still
it
think
goes
it's-
back
They'll
to
be
that
looking
same-
for your address,
I know.
or I will be handing it over like, here you go, that was so
Here he is,
great.
here he is.
No, I like theater.
I'm a member of the group.
They'll never get over the moat. They'll put the big drawbridge
Well,
up.
that's right. You volunteered to drive them all. That's how we're gonna save money.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Now it's
There you
starting a
go.
rumor.
Funny.
That would be worse than the mafia coming.
Franklin version.
Can I?
Right now, but I mean, that is the case. That is
Okay.
the exact
We-
scenario.
Hammered this to death.
Right.
Yeah.
22,
I'll
move
say.
forward.
11 or 12,000 out of 800 or 900 is not going to be the make it or break it.
There you go.
Are we comfortable with this 7% ask
Yep. October
across
10th.
the board
Yes.
and a return date of
Next week, right?
October 10th.
And ask
Friday,
them for
October
their
10th.
Priorities, if they were to get any allocation back, what are their
What are the
priorities when
top
they would want to
ones?
see it?
Yeah, give
Yeah,
them-
rank it.
Yep,
Rank
right.
it in.
because the big ones that will be interesting, of course, will be fire in terms of where they put their.
Mhm.
And again, when you're talking personnel, I mean, go with DPW.
It's our three biggest budgets right there.
Exactly.
Just mention
The
them.
rest doesn't really, I don't wanna say doesn't matter, but
Doesn't come
it's
close.
immaterial. So, somebody wanna make a motion to that effect, recommendation that the finance committee, the common council, that's the way that this budget process will move forward for 2026?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anything
Aye.
further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What else do we need?
I move we adjourn.
Say that's it. I know the only other thing on the
Second.
agenda, which we didn't necessarily talk about, was the TIDs, but I think we know that there's some projects moving along in TID 8 that are gonna require some borrowing.
So
But
that will
a
be
lot of that will
revisited in
be,
26
yes,
anyway.
so that's what I'm saying. I
So
think,
if we wanted to build that into that process, we could do that at
and
that time.
consider Paul's comments when we are discussing the borrowing and all that. Other than that, no. I
So
think just
now I'll
the
maybe
next
ask
meeting.
for, if there's anything else, Danielle, otherwise I'll re-ask for that motion to adjourn.
I move.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.